So let's talk about when gardening is overwhelming, because we're right in the middle of the season, the summer season, at least in the Northern Hemisphere. And I know that this time of year can get especially just crazy with the amount of planting and harvesting and all that. So we're not quite into the part where you're just kind of mostly reaping the benefits of stuff. You're still trying to get things into the ground and weeding, keeping on top of all that. And gardening doesn't have to be a big part of your life to be overwhelming. I know that some people don't even want to do gardening because they're just like, I just seems like a lot of time that I can't dedicate to that, and I get it. And I'm just wanted to talk about that today so that you can manage that. And for those of you that really want to grow something, you shouldn't let that stop you. Welcome to True Freedom Permaculture, where I show you all the tips and tricks you need to have a green thumb, even if you weren't born with one. My first tip is to choose what's truly important to you and just chuck the rest out. So for those of you, it might be something like growing tomatoes. You really love growing tomatoes, so just focus on the tomatoes if you have a limited amount of time and energy, and just chuck the rest. So for me, for example, this year I do have limited time because I have a newborn, and so I am really just focusing on medicinal herbs, because herbs tend to be much lower maintenance, and yet they're something that are important to me, that me and my family use quite a bit. So those are things that I wanted to focus on for this year. And that's why I have dedicated what time and energy I have to that, and I have just let go of a lot. And it's not something that I love, but it's just something that I have to do for right now. So that is my first tip to you, is to just really think about what is important to you. You do not have to grow everything. You don't have to live off of 100% of what you've grown, you know, blah, blah. That's a great goal if that's something that you want to do, but that's not feasible for all of us in this very moment. So just choose what's important to you and focus on that. My second tip to you is, if you have limited amounts of time, instead of making a list, for example, I don't know if you're a list person. I am, or I was before I had a baby. But if you have limited amounts of time, instead of saying things like, I want to get this garden bed weeded today, or I want to, get all of the lawn mowed today, for example, then, sometimes that's not always realistic, and especially if we're working with small windows of time. So what I have found helps me is, instead of going by line item, just saying, okay, I'm going to spend 15 minutes or 20 minutes doing X. And that might be cleaning up a garden bed or whatnot. So that way it's timed, so I feel like I get more done when I know that the pressure's on and I just have this small window. But also, that means that if I don't get a task fully complete, then that's okay. And I might have to return to it another day, but at least I knew that I dedicated all my focus into this 15 or 20 minutes. And you will be surprised at what just even like 10 minutes of just your focus on one task can really make a world of difference, especially if you're able to do that every day or every other day. An example to me is that I have grapes. Those are something besides the herbs that are also very important to me. They also serve as nature's cabana for my family on our deck. And they're something I look forward to every year. I love looking at them outside the window and obviously eating them later on, using the grape leaves for dolmas. And this year we've gotten a lot of rain. They've gotten very overgrown, and I just sat there and looked at them out the window, and it was just a source of stress for me because I wouldn't do anything about it, but every day I would see it and it would stress me out. So I knew that I had to take care of them, because you do have to stay on top of them. So if you want the grapes, you've got to stay on top of the grapevines. And so I was like, you know what, instead of because I was trying to, in my mind, envision a day where I could just get the entire grapevines cleaned up and tied up and everything looking good. And I realized that in this moment in my life, that's not a reality. So I just broke it up and I was like, okay, I'm going to do 20-minute windows. So that's what I did, is I timed myself. I did 20-minute windows, and I think it took me like 4 20-minute windows. Whereas in prior years, I might have just knocked out the whole thing all at once in one day and gotten it done. But it did eventually get done, and now I look out the window and I can enjoy it, and it's just a huge sense of relief. So I just had to view things through that lens instead of trying to get the whole item complete. My third tip to you is sort of a big picture view of that everything is for a season. Everything is temporary. And so in this stage of my life, for example, with the baby, I have absolutely no regrets about dedicating my time and energy towards caring for my baby. However, I know that at some point, I will have more time once again to go back to the garden. So that's why I don't let it get me down, even though it's something that's very important to me. So keep that in mind too. Your situation might be different. You might be caring for an elderly loved one, for example, or you might have an illness, something like that. I hope you don't, but these things do happen. So just know that everything is temporary. You will be able to dedicate more time to the garden again. So like I said, if there's things where you can't manage it by, for example, doing the small timed windows, it's truly just too much for you, then things will change. And once again, you will be able to incorporate the things that you love more into your life, which might include gardening, probably if you're watching this channel. I just want to say thank you so much for subscribing. I look at all of you subscribing and I love it. And I love that everyone just really seems to come from very diverse backgrounds, and the people that have been contributing to the comments, I really appreciate that as well. And I think people really like hearing from you too. So that's all I have. I will see you all again soon.